finally got another episode of the podcast going again. It's been a long time coming. To be honest, it's been a struggle to get guests on. So, Tom, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
So, we started talking in train station, and I see you around a lot with multiple clients, always working. Seems like every single day. And one thing that surprised me is you were just completely, straight, no nonsense, no BS about any question that I've had, whether it be training or diet or anything like this. So I wanted to ask you that: how'd you get into fitness, and what kind of led you down this path of being a trainer?
So I've been lifting about 4 years, and then as I was growing up, my dad was a bodybuilder. He only did one show, but I was always around that when I was a kid. So I kind of got into it growing up a little bit, and then like senior year of high school, I lifted for about a year, and then I just completely stopped. I got into just life, went to college, started partying, and then actually ended up going to treatment about 5 years ago, and that's where I decided to actually get into it. And I was in a year-long treatment program, and it was during COVID. So I think a lot of the other gyms weren't even open, but we were lucky enough to have a gym there. So a lot of the guys there were just kind of into it, and I just really got hooked on it. And yeah, I guess since then I've had my training certification for about a year and a half. I didn't really use it for the first 6 months. I was from Minnesota, so I was living there and working, and then I just started training when I moved to Colorado. I've been here about a year, and I think I've been training at train station for about 9 months. So yeah, that's a condensed version of it.
I admire your candidness about essentially a drug addiction that you were overcoming that led you down essentially the road of fitness. So, what was it that you were struggling with, and what kind of led you down that path?
It was alcohol and drugs, both.
Oh,
And then actually, so I ended up getting frostbite. Minnesota is pretty cold,
yeah,
and I got frostbite one night. It was about 40 below, and then went to the hospital. I had a couple fingers amputated, so you can see these two,
yeah.
and then the tip of this one. And that was a pretty,
Uh,
gnarly situation. But then after that, when I, got cleaned up, I just really really got into fitness. So
and how does having the finger amputees impact your training? Does it change that much? Because you've built quite an impressive physique in a relatively short amount of time.
yeah, I appreciate that. Well, like at first, I was very hesitant to do it. It's easy to think like, oh, I can't do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And then I don't really know what switched. I think it was just being in that program, not having much to do and kind of been having that outlet. But yeah, I guess for some back exercises, it's really the only like, I don't deadlift or anything like that, but anything where you're pulling, it gets more challenging. But I do use like a Versa grip is like a wrist strap, it goes around your wrists, and then it's like a quick release one that really helps me. So yeah, but it's not as limiting as you would think, surprisingly.
It's commendable for sure. When it when it comes to using fitness as part of your recovery, what do you think allows for that to kind of transition towards that? And was it more of kind of like being able to foster a mental discipline into something new, or building better habits?
Yeah, I think it's the complete opposite. I had like no structure in my life before. I just lived day by day, didn't plan anything. And I honestly think that people with addiction issues, they kind of have a certain type of mind where they're all in. So I kind of took that and put it towards, bodybuilding, nutrition, coaching, training, all that stuff. So
Did you a skinny physique, or more like,
no,
or more with extra weight trying to trim off?
yeah, I think so I'm probably 230 now. I think when I started, I was, 280. They weren't feeding us the best food there either, and we were sitting around a lot.
Yeah.
So I've kind of like recomped quite a bit. I'm obviously down quite a bit than when I started, but I've been able to put on muscle while doing that. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It seems genetic when someone is starting off at heavier body fat and trying to come down as to whether or not they build muscle. Some
Yeah,
people they need to kind of trim down first before they can build any kind of muscle whatsoever, and they need some extra calories. And other people they can build muscle and cut just fine. So I landed somewhere in the middle on my weight loss journey. Now it's trying to get that little bit extra off and trying to build more at the same time. And that's the hard part of bodybuilding when you're at those last few inches of the finish line.
yeah, and you're actually more easier to build muscle when you're at a lower body fat. So, like a lot
Makes
of
sense.
people, like if you're doing a bodybuilding show, people talk about the rebound. That's the few days or the few weeks after the show when you're eating calories again. That's when you're most like anabolic and you're able to build the most muscle. So that's like a really good starting point for most people. I kind of did the opposite where I bulked up for quite a long time and then finally kind of started changing my lifestyle and yeah, feeling way better now.
Absolutely. What brought you from way up north of Minnesota over here to the Denver area?
So I met my fiance now when she was working at a hospital there,
Mhm.
and then we just met online, and then kind of hit it off, and then she moved back here, and like, yeah, you want to come with me? And I think we'd only been together, I don't know, 6 months at that point, but it just felt right, and I'm glad I did.
Nice. So
That's kind of,
wait, when you say hospital, was she working at the same hospital that you were recovering in?
she actually did, but I didn't. That's not how we met. As soon as I said hospital, I was like, hey, he's gonna think that she's
Uh,
my nurse or something.
uh, odd coincidence.
Yeah, yep. So
How are you liking Denver so far? In Colorado in general.
um, I love it. I miss my family, obviously, but the mountains are beautiful. I've met a lot of really good people. I've made a lot of really good changes in my life, so I'm happy.
Yeah. What got you into the training part?
So I think when I originally, I was getting into fitness and stuff, and then I was like in between jobs, and I had like a week or two where I was just kind of not doing much. I was going to the gym more, and I was like, you know what? I think it was one of my friends actually that he had his certification. He's like, hey, you should just do this. So I did it, and then like I was saying earlier, I got a job and then I didn't really use it. So it's something I got into, but it's kind of put it on hold. And actually, I mean, I'm sure you know this, but most people that are trainers have a full time job. Most of them do it on the side.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing now. I work full time and then do handyman stuff also on the side, and then I do personal training with a couple clients, and I do online coaching for two guys right now. So
So that's what I wanted to cover with you on the podcast is I see a lot of online trainers. I see a lot of people, and when you start talking to these people, it's the same canned program with a little bit of tweaks here or there. So I wanted to kind of get your opinion because since you do both on the differences between online coaching and actually being in person and being able to work with clients.
well, I think there's a huge difference. So like lately, like you said, it's been booming, right? If you go on Instagram, everyone's an online trainer, and they're all trying to get you to sign up. So I started as a trainer, and one thing I'll try to explain is like, so like, let's say you have a lagging body part, right? Like, let's say you're not connecting with your chest.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to explain over the computer or emails. Like, this is the technique to do it. If I'm in person with somebody, I can just show them. I could correct for them. It's very like a hands-on thing. These like subtle changes that are very hard to kind of explain over a computer. So that's a big one. And I'm sure like if you've been training with somebody, you know, if it's just a friend of yours or whatever, it's just the connection's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to know each other. And so, like, I'm actually fortunate. The two guys that I online coach, they're both in Colorado. So
Okay.
I train with both of them. One of them's actually lives in Hawaii, but he goes to school here, and the other one lives close to us. So it's kind of unique because like a lot of these online coaches, they'll coach people from all over the country, and they never see them. They won't go to their shows, and like I'm fortunate to be able to go to their shows with them and kind of experience it with them, which is something definitely special.
So you are coaching people who are competitive bodybuilders.
Yeah. So they're both 19. They both go to CU
Okay.
in Boulder. Um, AJ's first show is coming up in September, and Nathan has one in October, and he also had one about a month ago. He competed at the Branch Warren Classic, so
Okay.
that
Wow.
was really fun. His family flew up from Hawaii, and yeah, it was a good time.
What's involved in getting someone down to that kind of stage weight?
Diet obviously is a huge part of it. It's a lot of so like what we've been doing. Like okay, like with Nathan, I only helped him for the last month,
Okay.
and I hadn't coached anyone before online. So I had this idea. I was like, hey, I want to learn about this. I'll do it for free. You can take what I say literally, or like, you can do whatever you want, but it'd be good to have an extra set of eyes on you or just somebody to bounce ideas off of. That's kind of how I approached it with him. It's like, yeah, that's fine. So I did that, and um, I lost my train of thought here.
No
Oh,
worries.
so yeah, I helped him for the last month, and then so he was already on the right track, and I just tweaked a couple things with his diet, and we got him down. But he had actually lost about, I think, like 75 pounds in his prep, so he went
Oh
down
my
really
goodness.
fast. Yeah, I'll show you some before and after pictures. So his problem was he lost some muscle,
Okay.
and so with this next show, what our hope is that he's at a much better starting point. He's got about 15, 20 pounds to lose, which is way more reasonable in 12, 14 weeks than 75, 75 pounds, So it was the first show together, and it was a learning process for both of us. And then AJ hasn't competed before, but I'm very happy to be involved in that too. So
So you've coached one show and one competitor for show, and then there's going to be essentially two more down the road.
there's two guys total. So
Two guys total.
yeah,
And so Nathan on that first show, essentially he was in a situation where he came in too lean or like too flat.
I just don't think he had enough time.
Mm.
So he was basically like, I just don't think that his conditioning was where he wanted it to be. I thought he looked great, but I think that he could come in a little fuller and a little sharper. And I mean, we talked about this, with this too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Bodybuilding, it's a little bit different than someone who's just trying to lean up for a beach or a wedding or something like this. As far as restricting the diet down, is it kind of like a low fat, higher carb setup, or kind of drop the carbs down and keep the fats up? What's your strategy as far as getting these guys really lean?
So what I like to do is I basically manipulate carbs. So I'm sure you're familiar with carb cycling. That's
Yep.
something that I've done personally. With Nathan, we just did super low carb because he was a little bit behind.
Mhm.
Um, what I like to do is I'll personally, this is what I've done. I'll do like 100 grams of carbs for 3 days, and I'll keep the protein the same, right? So like for me, I would do, let's just call it 200 or 250.
Sure.
So I'll do that for 3 days, and then the fourth day would be a high day. So then I would do 400 grams of carbs, and I would drop the protein down a little bit just to kind of equal out the calories.
Mhm.
So this way, like I'm sure because you've done low carb, you have no glycogen in your muscles, you're drained, you look flat, and then on the high day, it kind of gives you like a boost and fills your muscles back up with glycogen, gives you some energy, and then you end up dropping after that.
Gotcha.
So it's like a repeat, basically. That's the
So
method I use.
So when it comes to a peak, is that really kind of pulling all the fats and protein out and just carving up over a few days or a week, or is it a little bit different? Because I've heard multiple strategies for getting someone to peak on stage.
That's the thing. It's like, especially when I was looking into it, like how to peak somebody. Everybody has a different way to do it.
Yeah,
There's some basic things that are similar, but also a lot of coaches, that's how they make their money. So they're not going to be like, oh, this is my protocol for peaking somebody. So
yeah,
usually it's like the last week, um, you can get by on less protein
yeah.
because it doesn't really matter at that point, right? It's like now you're going to lose a bunch of muscle during the last 2 days.
Yeah.
And with Nathan, what we did was We did, so show day was Saturday. So I believe Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday we did 400 grams of carbs. And before that, he was at below 100, so that was a lot for him. So that was like the carb up.
Yeah.
We also we had been doing a lot of veggies when we were doing low carb to kind of keep him full, or to fill his stomach, I should say.
Sure.
And you don't want anything in your stomach like on show day, so we did no veggies during peak week at all. They're basically just eating carbs.
Yeah.
Just trying to get as full as possible for that last day. And then so we did that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We ended up doing the same thing, but Friday's like an assessment day. So yeah, so like if I was speaking to you, I'd look at you and then determine, are we gonna drop the carbs a little bit? Are you too full? Are we gonna keep it the same? Are we gonna increase it? So it's just kind of like you have to look at the athlete and kind of make a decision with that.
And how much would you say genetics impacts this from person to person?
Everybody's different. Genetics is huge, especially in bodybuilding. Since I've only peaked one person, I'm far from an expert, but I know that genetics plays a huge role in, your structure, how your body looks, how you handle carbs, you know,
Yeah.
water manipulation, all that stuff. So I think genetics is like one of the most important things in bodybuilding.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to in-person clientele, did you start training at a different gym, or did you begin at train station?
I started at train station.
And how'd you get connected with those guys? Because George and all them are just fantastic.
Yeah, they're great people for sure. Well, I don't know if you know Luis. He's a trainer there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's actually my banker. So I was at the credit union one day. I was like getting a debit card or something, and I was
Mhm.
just talking to him about training, kind of telling him my situation. He's like, "Hey, you should check out this gym." And that was before they had the expansion and everything. It was a lot smaller, way different than it is now. So I just went in there and I started talking to them, and kind of got the ball rolling. Did an interview with Alex, and yeah,
Yeah, Doc over there, he's a impressive guy. Just won the muscle quest. I think he took overall.
yeah, I was there. It was very awesome to see Alex win. He's a really really good guy. He's helped me out a lot, and I've asked him probably hundreds of questions. So yeah, he's awesome.
I always get him nailing me in my Instagram DMs. He say you need some carbs, boy.
Yeah, he's got a good sense of humor too.
What's that?
He's got a good sense of humor too.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was coaching Trevor Rashavi for, I think it's that last show at the end of the year. I forget, in like October or November.
Rocky Mountain.
Yeah, it was Rocky Mountain. So he was coaching a mutual friend named Trevor, and the jokes just kept rolling off the tongue. He's a funny guy and incredibly smart. So when it comes to the personal training environment in person, you have two clients right now.
I actually have one client right now.
One client.
Yeah. So I've trained a couple people over these past, I don't know how long I've been there, maybe 9 months.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of them, like I've had a couple people lose their jobs or just things come up. Some people just want to get the basics and then they decide not to do it anymore, which is understandable. It's expensive. I think
Yeah.
it's a very good investment for yourself, but let's face it, like if something comes up, you have a bill to pay, that's the first thing you're gonna drop is personal training, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I stay in touch with these people. Like I ran into somebody today that had lost his job, and then I just saw him at the gym, and I lifted with him. So actually, you were late, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I came to this guy instead.
Chevrolet screwed me over. It took an hour for an oil change.
No,
Come on.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Now I get mad whenever when I'm late, because I'm like, all right, I know this day and I'm available here because I'm a busy dude too. And then when it doesn't happen, I lose my mind. So it's not. It's more being mad at myself than anything.
No, yeah, it's not a big deal. We'll have plenty of time to get a workout in one of these days.
Absolutely. So, do you have a preference whenever it comes to the in person training? Are you looking for someone who's new to the gym or someone who's pretty experienced? What's your kind of like favorite clientele to work with?
I'll work with anybody. I don't necessarily have a favorite type of client.
Mhm.
But it's definitely nice when somebody can, like when somebody starts to pick up on things and
Yeah.
something starts to click, that's when it gets fun, you know.
Yeah.
You can see them making some changes, and yeah.
So when it comes to yourself and your personal goals, you've built a pretty impressive physique in a very small number of years. Is the competition juices starting to flow after seeing Alex on stage over the weekend?
Yeah, it has been. And I've been like very and like I follow professional amateur bodybuilding very closely. I go to a lot of the shows here. I've probably been to about 8 shows. Um, it's definitely something I want to do, and I think that I don't have a set date. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. And yeah, I'm very, very, very interested and definitely going to do one at one point in my life.
So how tall are you? 6 foot, like 6'2"? You're taller than me.
Yeah, I'm 6'2".
Goodness, 6'2", 230. You could be getting close to a weight cap for classic already. That's impressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, around 230 is the weight cap, but that's stage lean, which I'm definitely not. So I'd probably come in around 200. But I think I'm gonna do open bodybuilding.
And with open bodybuilding, do you think it's just because that's what you're genetically built for, or just that it's a higher stage?
Um, I think that yeah, genetically, like I have a very big structure and wide and stuff like that. But even when I'm dieted down, my waist, if you're trying to compare yourself to Arnold or Frank Zane, they want the V taper like this, right?
Yeah.
And my waist doesn't get that small. Like I haven't been that incredibly lean yet, but I'm seeing some of these guys that are winning. And it's not that I'm not confident in myself, but I think I'm a little more suited structurally wise for open bodybuilding. But I've also thought about doing both. So
Well, we've seen so many times with some of these pros where they're an open and they got such a great waist and a great taper that they could be good in classic, and then you hear the same thing in classic. Like a lot of people were talking about that Ramon Dino may go to open just because how's he going to be Bumstead with how the current weight caps work, and he's got such a huge frame anyways in the off season.
yeah.
Do you have someone who is like your biggest motivator, like someone that you look up to at a pro level, or it could even be just someone that's not as well known that had a personal impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually the reason me and you talked is because I was wearing a Hunter Labrada shirt, and so
Yeah,
yeah, he's probably the biggest one. Just I've taught myself a lot off YouTube. Like if it wasn't for YouTube, I probably wouldn't know much at all. But I've been watching his training videos, a lot of different people. But I like his training style, kind of like the high intensity, low volume, um, focusing more on rest. Like you're still going to failure, but you're not doing 4 sets of failure per exercise. I believe that's just overkill. But there's many different ways to train, and yeah, I just think he seems like a good guy, and the way he explains things um, is very very nice to hear.
have you ever gotten to meet him yet?
I haven't. I've only met I met Branch Warren at the Branch Warren
Mhm.
Classic, and then yeah, I think he's the only pro I've ever met.
So I got to meet Hunter at the Houston Expo in 2022. His whole family company, LeBron Nutrition, is based out of the northwest side of town over there. Nicest guy. And this is 2022. He's bigger now, but when I met him, oh my goodness! When you actually see a true open pro, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
Complete
in person is a different story.
complete mutant. Nicest guy. I can't remember what happened. Something happened where that he left his booth, but then they were waiting to like I don't know do like some sort of Q&A meeting or something. So he was hanging out over by this Celsius desk, and I went over there and talked to him for 20 minutes, and he was just fantastic. So I root for that guy every single year, and it just keeps getting bigger and better. I think he's just over 300 pounds this offseason. If not, he's really close.
Yeah, I think this is going to be his year for sure.
It's hard with those open guys, right? Because Samson Data is so big, Hai Chupin's so big. Then,
Derek.
yeah, Derek Lunsford who just won. Who's the other guy? Andrew Jacked. There's so many of these where there's all so close to each other, and also it depends on the judges' criteria of what it is that they're looking for. That it could just flip in one night.
I think it's been trending towards shape guys, Samson and But Derek has amazing shape too. But Samson and Andrew, I mean, these guys they're taller than me, and they're close to 300 pounds on stage. Well, I know Samson's, I don't know Andrew's weight, but yeah, they're just I just hear that they look like aliens when you meet them in real life.
It really is. Your long term goal would be the Open. Is it that you want to go for a pro card or just kind of see what you got?
No, I think just seeing my dad was like competing when I was growing up kind of sparked the interest, and then I think I just want to do one show. I'm sure once I do one show, I'm going to want to do more. But right now, it's just
Yeah.
focus on on making that one show. I don't think I would ever want to be a pro. Not saying I could be, but I'm just saying I don't think I'd want to do all the stuff that goes into it and completely live that lifestyle.
Well, everybody knows that it's dangerous. I mean, number one, you're walking around at an excessive body weight. Doesn't matter if it's muscle or fat. So that obviously has health impacts, and it goes without saying that there's a lot of drug use involved in that. For some people, they're comfortable with that. Other people, it's not. So it's there's definitely like pros and cons that you have to really watch out for and be very careful when it comes to the sport.
Absolutely.
When it comes to someone who is just a regular person who likes to work out and stay in shape, is when you're coaching them, how do the goals differ between someone who is just a casual gym goer versus someone who's very serious and competitive?
Well, it all depends on the person. They're the ones setting the goals. So
Yeah.
a lot of people, yeah, it just depends on the situation. Like if you want to look good for a wedding, or if you just want to make some lifestyle changes, you kind of have to sit down with them and figure out what they want,
Yeah.
and tailor everything around that. But it's going to be less. I think there's a lot more that goes into prepping someone for a show. They're getting down to dangerous levels of body fat, and it's not like a sustainable situation. Like with a lifestyle person, they want to get to something that they can maintain, look good, feel better, be more healthier. It's more of like a longer term lifestyle goal type of change than like a single day of looking amazing.
Yeah, and then that's kind of gone within 3 days because you're going to rebound and then you put on a lot of water and a lot of fat back on pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The one thing that I see a lot is with Colorado, there's a pretty big drinking culture here. It's the fourth highest alcohol consumption per person in the United States. How much does alcohol impact just your shape, your composition in the gym, regardless of how that your health is doing?
Just in general.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes without saying that alcohol doesn't do anything positive for you, right?
Yeah.
Makes you feel good, like give you some dopamine. It's fun to do it like a social thing, drink with your friends, family, that kind of thing. It's really a poison, right? So it's not like a carb or a protein. It's not like your body can't use it for anything. It's just your body just has to work to burn it off.
Yeah.
So I think other than like the social aspect and I like the cultural part of it, I don't think that it's beneficial for you in the gym and in any way.
Hmm. And I definitely feel a little more comfortable about this with the fact that it's legal here in the state of Colorado. But as far as marijuana in fitness, do you have a take on it or an opinion?
Not really, and I'm not really, I don't smoke weed, but I used to,
Yeah.
and I think the only thing I've really heard from like the bodybuilding culture, I think that there are a lot of bodybuilders that do it,
Mhm.
whether it's just for fun or to like in the off season to get food down. It can be a good tool.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to say that you should smoke weed and try to
No.
get huge, but I've definitely heard some pro bodybuilders talking about it or saying they wish they would have used weed to spark their appetite a little bit. But
Yeah.
other than that, unless you're using it for like what's the right word here, therapeutic reason or like sleep or something like that, then it kind of depends on the type of weed too. If it's the type that's just going to make you lay around and eat a bunch of junk food, it's probably not the best idea. But if it's something that just makes you feel good or helps with the illness or, like I said, sleep, then I think that's definitely a good solution.
It could be considered pretty much.
Yeah.
The one thing that concerns me with the marijuana is that it's genetic person to person on how that impacts your hormone system. The one thing that seems to occur at least about 50% of men, that's the studies I've seen, is that it could skyrocket your prolactin as well as your aromatase. So if you're making too much estrogen or prolactin, then that could kind of cause the problems based upon metabolism and how essentially you're consuming calories and making use of those macros. So that when I was I used to be a pretty heavy marijuana user, at least in my college days, and it was my prolactin shot up through the roof, like into the 20s, and then I pulled it out and went right back down to 7. So that
Wow.
it's
Yeah, I didn't know
really interesting how that impacts different people. Because at the same time, as you said, I know people in bodybuilding that they've been chronic stoners for 7 years, and you would never guess it. They don't have a problem. They have a great physique, and it's just something that they enjoy on their evenings.
that. Yeah, I think it's very person to person type situation.
So you also work full time. What industry are you involved in? If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, property maintenance. So I basically just, yeah, handyman, stuff like that. Do a lot of cleaning, moving stuff, fixing like plumbing, electrical, demo, just all sorts of stuff. So it's every day is very different. And so one thing I really like about it, and since I moved to Colorado, it's kind of the first time I've been doing this, is just I'm always moving around through the whole day. I'll
Mhm.
probably get an average of 10,000 steps a day.
Yep.
I'm always doing something. Some days are more physical than others, but I definitely have seen a big change in my physique and fat loss and stuff like that, and energy with this type of work.
So definitely the step counter is going to matter whenever you're coming down.
Yeah.
Does it make it more difficult to put on weight whenever when you're moving that much?
Um. Yeah, I suppose it does, and I haven't really been trying to gain weight. I'm trying to get a little bigger right now, but I'm not like hitting it super hard. But yeah, that's a good point. So like, if you're really trying to put on a lot of muscle, then you're gonna want to limit your cardio at some point. So I think with me, I'd have to eat a lot more than I am now if I wanted to seriously consider putting on like a lot of size. But
Hmm.
yeah, for the average person, I think it's pretty healthy to have some type of job where you're moving around. I know some people have a desk job, and that's kind of one thing that's a little more challenging for them. That they try to get those steps in different points of the day or after meals or things like that. I don't think I have an advantage as far as that type of thing goes.
For someone who is working a desk job, as I myself, can you compensate for that fact by lowering your calories, or does it get to a point
Yeah,
where you're too steep in
yeah,
a calorie deficit?
yeah. You would have to. I can afford to eat more calories than a person with a desk job,
Mm.
but there's things you can do. I think the most thing, and I got this from, or the biggest thing I got this from Stan Efferding, is going on 10-minute walks. Like he'll do
Yeah.
that with a lot of his clients. He's a pretty well-known, nutritionist, bodybuilder, strongman, or not strongman, powerlifter. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He does 10-minute walks after each meal, and he'll do that instead of prescribing like a half an hour of cardio because most people are going to drop that. It's not very sustainable for a lot of people.
Hmm.
So a 10-minute walk after each meal kind of does the same thing, and it's actually really good for insulin resistance.
Hmm.
So it'll help with that type of thing as well. So it's a lot easier for anyone to go on a quick walk after they eat than do 45 minutes of cardio straight. I think that's way more sustainable.
When it comes to someone who's battling insulin resistance, would your protocol to attack that directly would be dropping carbohydrates, or more just the walks and getting some better food in the system?
Yeah, it's more about nutrition. I think the walks actually. He was saying that I haven't read the studies or anything. I'm kind of just regurgitating what he said about this, but he's basically saying that it's 3 times as effective as metformin, which is a medication that's
Mhm.
for that specifically. I think that and just for any kind of diabetes type thing, it's about diet. These
Yeah.
people are eating too much or they're not eating good food. So
Yeah.
more lifestyle change for that situation too.
When I guess this could be a final question, and we'll start wrapping up. You can't necessarily teach someone discipline, right? You can prescribe them a program, whether it be a training program, a diet program, combination of cardio and all the three major pillars. What do you do to kind of essentially encourage a client to be able to kind of build the discipline to be able to stick with it? Because motivation always just comes and goes.
Um, that's a good question. So it really depends on the person and where they're at. Some people just need encouragement. Like I like to just check in on people. Even if it's just friends of mine or someone that's just kind of starting out, it doesn't have to be a client. But I think that encouragement is really good. Just having like a kind of a gentle reminder. Um, but like for me, I've never really had the problem of motivation. It's just something. It's like for me, I have to like keep myself out of the gym. I'm like you, where I want to go every day.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's almost opposite for me. So it's kind of a tough thing, like client adherence. Like the ability for somebody to follow the program or follow the diet. That's the hardest thing because you can't really teach that. And then also, some people won't tell you. They won't say, "Oh, I cheated on my diet," or "I missed this workout." It's like almost like they don't want to disappoint you. So it's just a really kind of like a relationship type thing with the client, and it's kind of being able to figure out what works for them, and what doesn't, and some people just get it, and some people struggle a little bit. So it just depends, I think.
So where can people find you? I feel like you got a lot to offer, and for a lot of people, I think they're always looking for someone who is always available and pays attention to their clients. And I think that you hit all of those.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a trainer at Train Station in Longmont. So I don't know, maybe you can put the information at the bottom of the podcast. I'm not sure if you can do that. My Instagram is Tom Lisco. So yeah, I've tried to put a lot of like cooking, meal prep, and training videos on there. So I'm always just trying to put information out there. I've learned a lot from people on the internet, so I'm just trying to give back and help whoever I can.
Internet's a blessing, so we'll see what happens when we release this one out to the world.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Appreciate you, Tom. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Mahan. Thank you so much.